Tweirdos. Welcome to True Weird Wednesday Happy Hour. Cheers, everybody. Oh, oh.
Cheers.
I was just telling Max and Heather, we have an episode that's coming up. And believe it or not, L. Ron Hubbard figures in this episode. And I'll just give you one tiny tease. By the time you finish listening to The Mad Scientist, you'll know where Hubbard got the money to start Scientology. Boom. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
Can't wait.
Delightful. Hi, Regina. Cheers from the Sunshine State, everyone.
We'll have to link in Leah Remini. I'm sure
Wow.
she'd love this.
It is, you know what? I will say, like, and I mean no hurt or offense to believers in Scientology. But when you know what a grift it began as, it takes your breath away. Now, if it's been useful for you and it's given you the kind of tools you need to live a fully self-actualized life, go you. But what you don't know about the early days will blow your mind. And what you don't know is the way that the early days of Scientology are braided together with the American space program and black magic. I mean, it is a classic, epic, true weird stuff kind of a tale. And we cannot wait to bring that to you in the next couple of weeks. Hi, Leslie and Barbara and Susan and Cheryl and Kathy and Suzanne and Renee and Jane. Oh, she said Jane says I could use some cheering up. I know I'm in the right place. Well, girl, you are in the right place because we will not be covering anal fistulas today. as we have gone as deep in that subject as any three people can.
But we will talk about other assholes.
And there's no shortage. Let me tell you what. I love what Crystal. Wait, Crystal, we're going to take that and give you credit. Tweirdos. Do you see it?
Oh, wow. I love it.
I love it. Hi, Melissa and Jean and Sherry. Cheers from Lexington, Kentucky. Drinking my Riesling from my Bob and Sheri Happy Hour wine glass. Oh my God, Kentucky people, I have a question. I got an email blast from Southern Living Magazine today with a recipe for banana croquettes, which are a Kentucky favorite. So I want you to peel a banana. I want you to roll it in mayonnaise and then in peanuts. And then I want you to deep fry it and serve it on a little bed of lettuce.
That may work, actually.
I love your positivity.
You know what's really funny about this? For some reason, someone who used to live in this apartment, they somehow have kicked a subscription for Southern Living that is coming to here under somebody else's name, and so I can look that up.
I had never, I love discovering a new regional food, but I had never heard of banana croquettes. And I love bananas and I like peanuts and lettuce. I mean, mayonnaise, as long as I'm not eating it by the spoonful.
The mayonnaise would get lost in the frying. So I wouldn't get the mayonnaise-iness. So
Oh, look, Jenny Waybright says, my friend makes this. Not sure about the fried part. So you would just roll your banana in mayonnaise and then in crushed peanuts and then just eat it without.
That might work. I'm trying to have a good attitude about it.
You are. Well, we had a day today. Heather and I were just commiserating. We had a day today with so many weird, difficult, pain in the ass things that by the time we skidded into happy hour, we were like, let's look on the bright side. None of us are actively on fire. Look at us not being actively on fire. Hi to Jeannie, sending love from beautiful Southern Illinois. Max, Jeannie sent you the snake eating the snake video.
Oh, yes. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah. So, weirdos, what would y'all like to cover tonight? The last episode, the current episode about Freddie and Truce and Hanny, the three teenage Nazi assassins from the Netherlands is a pretty heavy topic. It's not nearly as fun as the anal fistula conversation that we had a few
No,
weeks ago on the last one.
but for in working on it, I think, and for the voice talents that we had, um, Ashley Palmer Fisher and your friend Stacy and
Lucy Robertson, yeah.
Robertson, they did an exceptional job in that, and they really made the episode. And for us, it was a favor to put together, because I told Sheri, I can't wait for you to hear this. I really can't.
It's one of those stories that, like, you might not have known a little bit about it. Hannie Shaft, who was 21 years old when she joined the Dutch resistance. Hannie was famous. She was known as the red-haired girl. She was this beautiful, beautiful, flaming ginger. And she prided herself on being like immaculate when she'd go out on a mission. And that would include, assassinating Nazi officers. So a lot of people have heard of Hannie Shaft, and Truus Overstegen, who was 16 when this all began, became a prominent artist and traveled the world lecturing on the problem of apathy and indifference, and how easy it is for evil to creep up on good people when they look away and do nothing. So she was really famous, especially in Europe, less so in the US, but especially in Europe, she was famous. And her actions during the Holocaust are pretty well documented. But Freddie, who was the youngest at only 14, Freddie had what today we would understand as complex PTSD from her combat experiences as a resistance fighter, and she vanished into private life. She never, ever knew peace. She was tormented all her life by nightmares and anxiety, and her story is less well known because she wasn't a public figure like her sister Truus, and she wasn't a martyr like her best friend and soulmate, Hannie. And so Max and I, who we thought we knew the bulk of the story, but it turned out we only knew like the barest skeleton.
Well, yeah, and part of they didn't get recognition until they were 89 and 91.
It was 2014.
Yeah, so
2014 before the Netherlands recognized them.
Yeah, since passed away. But what they did was so heroic and selfless. And, I think the thing that we kind of pointed out with during the course of the episode, there was these were two people that were full of humanity, who had a real sense of duty to their country and to the population, their friends, the Jews in the population who were being shipped off to camps. And they did this and then assimilated themselves back into lives where they got married and had children.
And were productive, good citizens.
Yeah.
Except for Hannie, of course, who at the end of the war, just a few days shy of liberation by the Allied forces, the Nazis dragged 21-year-old Hannie, or at that point, I think she would have been 23. 23-year-old Hannie out of her jail cell in Rotterdam, and marched her to the beach and shot her in the back and threw her into a mass grave with 421 other murdered people. So it was real. It was some real intense stuff. And it's an important story to tell because we happen to be living, and I never thought I'd see this in my lifetime, y'all, but we happen to be living at a moment in our own culture when Nazis are marching on American streets, when we just had a candidate for the presidency throw up a video about a unified Reich. And, this is the language of fascism. This is what almost 200,000 Americans died trying to turn back in World War II. So I thought it was a story that was worth telling at any time because those women were heroes. But it especially resonated right now. And Amanda's asking, how do we come up with the subjects we dive into? Does it happen by chance, or is there something in mind that you want to look into? It's a little bit of all of that. Obviously, so the rules for True Weird Stuff are, it has to be true in at least one way, right? And there has to be a twist to it that's strange, shocking, weird, paranormal, bizarre, unexpected. And so sometimes we'll be working on one thing and we'll take a side track and discover a completely different story that we're like, oh, let's do that one first. So a lot of times I have like piles of episodes in progress, and a lot of times I'll come across something, and it might be in like an old newspaper story or a declassified document or some weird random thing that I stumble across, and I get this feeling inside that feels like carbonation. And as soon as I feel that, I know, okay, this is going to be a story. And then how do we build it? That was someone else's question. Um, it's a combination of, like, we love to tell the story and with the people that we're talking about in their words. So anytime a voice actor is on the show speaking as that person, those are their verbatim words taken from news accounts or trial transcripts or autobiography, whatever it is. We never put words in these people's mouths because they're real people. They're not make believe. So we try to do that, but it is surprisingly difficult to find people that can embody these characters. Like with Freddie and Trues, Max and I don't speak Dutch, and we don't know anyone that speaks Dutch. So, there was no way to be authentic to that. And in other times, what we're asking our voice actors to say is horrible. Like in the episode Unholy City, when we told the story of cult leader William Riker, our actor in that one, he's a true weird regular. He's our MVP, Don Williams.
Yeah, Don Morgan.
I'm sorry, Don Morgan. Don Williams is the country singer, Don Morgan. So I went to Max and I was like, I want to write this for Don, but this guy is so racist and terrible that I'm afraid to ask him to do this.
He said, I'll do it, but can you tell people that I don't really think this way? Don is such a nice person. He said, just tell people that I'm just saying these words.
Oh my God.
Somebody asked what the densest episode.
Yeah. What did you think that is?
This last one certainly was one that came to mind, but also the one about the boys' prison in Florida. That one really stuck with me because it was there were so many things that were wrong in that situation. They were adolescents in prison and they were murdered. I mean, they were, many of them murdered, and there was, of course, a huge racial component to it. That
something to unmarked graves. Like, we still don't even know the magnitude of that atrocity.
I mean, that was one that was really horrifying.
And some of these, like if Max is having a rough week, I try to write him one that doesn't have a ton of, because some of these, if you listen to them, you'll hear like these really layered montages of news stories about the specific topic. Remember when we did the cattle mutilation episode, right? Which, by the way, cattle mutilations you can document cattle mutilations back to the 17th century in Ireland, right? It's a weird ass topic. Do you know that in the United States, there has never been a single arrest or conviction in a case of cattle mutilation? Not one. And it's 2024 now. And this stuff, we really had a rash of it in the early 1970s. So for that episode, we pulled all of these news reports from all over the country, and they were all really contemporary. This isn't like back in the day. This is like in 2018, a rancher in Kansas, right? And Max had to weave all of that sound together to tell a single story. So you can tell, if you listen to an episode of True Weird Stuff where there's not a lot of that, you can tell that Max is having a week. And we didn't want to load him up.
Oh, somebody said they loved your Missing Time, that one.
Y'all, when was I out in Utah last? Was it April for the NAB Max? I think it was.
Yeah.
And I was with my mom and my brother. The weirdness of the way my family acts around that is, it's heavy stuff. I am. I keep threatening to. I've met with a hypnotist about doing a past life regression. And I also might want to go back and see if I can unlock some memories from that. But I've had a lot of people tell me that you might not want to do that. I do want to do it anyway, and I'm gonna. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
the Civil War soldier, somebody saying that one.
Oh,
The
the Mother and Ghost.
Yeah.
That one was so sad. The thing about that, y'all, like that story is true and documented, and she grieved. The madness of grief. You lose your mind in grief. Max, 13 years she sat by her son's coffin in the upstairs hallway. 13 years. I mean, that's just a woman, a mother devastated by loss. Um, when we did that episode, when we told that story at the end of it, and this is going to sound kind of weird, but I felt like we did our small part to help lay that to rest because she was in so much pain. And if you've ever lost someone, what is the only thing that comforts you? To have other people see your grief
Mhm.
and hold it with you. To have other people stand next to you and go, I see this pain. And instead of making like a joke out of her or like, oh, she's so creepy, a dead body, we went the other way and we really kind of told the story of love and loss. And I think maybe we helped. I think maybe we helped put that one to bed. Oh, Maria, her favorite episode is with James Van Prague. That one's called Talking to Heaven. She
Right.
said it gives her hope. So let me flip one of my lights on, Max. Talk about Talking to Heaven, because that's one of our favorites too.
Yeah, I mean, and he did a pretty good job of explaining certain things, and I, I'm and there's a lot of people that call people that do that charlatans, but I certainly think that there's something going on with him where he has some kind of connection to the beyond. And we did interview him, and I think the one thing that we both believe is that that this is not finite, that there is something else that happens. And I think that we've certainly had a lot of evidence of that, and we've talked about even Alexander's book, Proof of Heaven,
Yeah.
where the guy who basically had died. He had a meningitis, I believe it was
Mm-hmm. Well,
meningitis.
he himself is a neurosurgeon or
Neurosurgeon.
neuroscientist. Yeah.
Yeah. And he explained what happened to him after he was declared dead and then came back. So I think that there's great hope in all of that, that there's something beyond just what's in front of us right now. I just believe that.
My favorite part of that episode was when I asked him, what he thought about his own death, and he started to giggle. And he said, well, I don't want to die today, but I'm really excited. And I thought that was a pretty powerful answer.
Yeah.
Cheryl Aruda has asked a question that I would like to answer. Is there a story you want to do, but there's too much emotion to it? So I've been sitting for a year on a story about the Mountain Meadow Massacre, which the basic outlines of it go like this. A wagon train of settlers, prosperous settlers with cattle and household goods and money, left Arkansas to make their way to California. And they stopped in Utah and to rest. I mean, you got to set up camp for a few days and recover. And a group of local Mormon men disguised themselves as members of the Paiute Nation and slaughtered that wagon train of people. The only lives they spared were the very small children, which they farmed out, these traumatized children, to families in the area until next of kin could come claim them. And it took the Mormon church. One of the things you'll see over and over again in these true weird stuff stories is an atrocity happens. And then it takes about 60 or 100 years for the people responsible to go, sorry, right? The Mormon church eventually did take responsibility and accountability and apologized formally for this massacre of these settlers. And in Utah, you can visit the site where this happened. And it is one of the most truly haunted and terrible places. I've ever been. And I took audio equipment with me, and I had my mom with me, and I had my mom read off of the markers and the monuments. And when we get to that episode, you'll hear my mom doing that. But it was a really hot day. Like, it was so hot that people were swimming in a nearby river about 5 miles south of the Mountain Meadows site. But you get there, and there is a cold wind blowing, and there's just death and grief. I'm not like one of these real super sensitive people that can pick up vibrations, but even my mom was shaking, and it was a terrible place. That's a story that needs to be told, but it's a hard one to tell for a lot of reasons. One, my mom is LDS, and I want to be respectful. I have a family member who is a descendant of one of the members of that killing party. And she is horrified by it. Like, she has spent years trying to come to terms with the fact that her ancestors were murderers. And it's a really hard story to tell. And and it's weird that I say that, because we do a lot of like really gruesome stuff
Mhm.
on this podcast. We did the episode on the Bloody Benders, and my God, those were terrible
Oh
crimes.
my.
But there's a layer to this, because these people wore one face for the world, and it was religious piety. And then when the sun went down, they were absolutely ruthless killers. And then to add another level of it, they disguised themselves as Paiutes, knowing that the Paiutes would be hunted down and slaughtered in retribution. And all for what? Some wagons and some cattle, a few bucks. It's absolutely one of the most horrific things to happen in the state of Utah, maybe in the American West. So yeah, that's a story that we'll get to. Mountain Meadow Massacre, Brandy and Patty. We'll get to it. But I mean, I've been sitting on it for a year, which is a long time to sit on a story.
Somebody was from Willow, Texas, said it was 52 degrees there, and spring is slow in coming. So,
We hear
sorry
you.
about that. And Leslie Alex Phillips, you're from Arlington. The high school I graduated from is in Arlington, Virginia. It's an odd thing.
Heather brought me some new equipment today, and I have a mouse for the first time in many, many years, and I keep rolling it right off the edge of my table because I'm not used to working with a mouse. So anyway, back to the James Van Praagh talking to heaven. A lot of us have this paralyzing fear of death, and if you are one of those people, that's a really good one to listen to. Don't you think, Max?
I think there was great comfort in that. Yeah, I think so. I think that if you really are afraid of that, I certainly got additional comfort from that. It's not something that I'm facing right now. We're all facing it in some way or shape or form, but I don't feel that I'm terribly concerned about. My father passed away last November, and one of the last conversations I had with him is he said, "Where do you think we go?" And I went, "You're the lifelong Catholic, I told him, I said, "I don't know." I said, "But I think that it's good. I think that it's we step into whatever the new situation is, and so I think that it's a positive situation. It is."
Some days you just feel like, oh, whatever is next has got to be better than this. But one of the things that James Van Praagh said in the episode Talking to Heaven, he said that this is a soul school, and that you come here, this is the most emotional of worlds, right? And we're just ruled by our feelings, and we act on those feelings, good and bad, sometimes really bad. And that you have to have that. You have to come here and go through all of that, and that's just part of it. Um, and the way he talked about it was interesting and comforting. because it makes you think, okay, I mean, I don't remember where I was before and I don't know where I'm going next, but if this is where I am right now, at least I know it's not all like this. Because there are a lot of days, if you pay any attention to the world or to the news, there are a lot of days where you just feel like, oh my God, people are terrible. Like we're just the worst. We're just the absolute worst. Um,
I'm looking forward to people to hear the episode that drops this coming Friday too. You want to talk about that, the Georgia
Guidestones. Is anybody here familiar with the Georgia Guidestones? So it's a great story. And, you know, in a perfect world, you'd be able to jump in your car and go visit them. So it all starts in 1980 when a really wealthy man approaches the head of a granite company in Elbert County, Georgia, which is the granite capital of the world. It's just through just a trick of ancient geological activity. Elbert, Georgia sits on this unbelievable reserve of granite. And there are Elbert County, Georgia, granite markers in every state in the country. It's like really cool stuff. They have a stadium there for their high school football and soccer teams that's made entirely of granite. I mean, it's really neat. Lamar has been to this stadium. So this guy shows up in town and he's using a fake name. He's got a ton of money. And he says that he represents a group that is worried that civilization is going to be wiped out by nuclear war in the next generation. And these individuals would like to build a monument for the future, guiding the remnants of humanity toward building a better world. And everybody's like, what a kook, right? And he's like, no, hear me out. American Stonehenge. And they build it in a year. And it's inscribed with 10 commandments, not the biblical 10 commandments. These are 10 commandments for how to rebuild civilization better. And for 42 years, this weird ass gigantic granite monument, the Guidestones for the Future, stood in a cow pasture in Elberton, Georgia, 42 years. But then the internet came along, you know, and the satanic panic of the 90s. And one thing led to another, as it will online. And the Georgia Guidestones became conflated with Satanism and the New World Order and globalism and black helicopters and one world government and the Illuminati and pretty much everything else, you know, that you could throw in. And they're no longer there because someone came in the dead of night and dynamited them.
Wendy Snow Wright said she's visited it like 3 months, and her words, before those assholes blew it up.
Thank you, because that's exactly what happened there.
And what we thought was a certain irony to this, it was there, so it would be there after the nuclear holocaust, but it didn't survive the people that are currently here. Because
it was built to withstand an atomic bomb, but not some hillbilly dynamite. Maria says, isn't there an episode of TWS or the Oddcast about Chernobyl or a province in Russia? Yes, it was an Oddcast episode before we started True Weird Stuff,
right,
about Russia's secret city. And it might even be named the Secret City, Max. I don't know. The Oddcast, Heather, like, are old Oddcast episodes everywhere? Like, what's the dealio with some of the earlier episodes?
So after a certain point, I think it's a couple of years, basically a couple of years ago, we had to move podcast back end stuff. And so there's stuff from a couple of years ago that you can't find through no fault of our own. It just wouldn't index that far back. And that's with everybody. And that's no matter who we would have used, that would have been the problem. So there are some way older, couple year older episodes that you can't find.
Well, you know what I can do? I can do a True Weird Stuff episode on the Soviet secret cities. True Weird Stuff came about because, like, I wanted to tell these stories, and there wasn't really a place for it because, like, if I brought one onto the radio show, Bob's head would explode. And I could do them on the Oddcast, but never in the detail that I could never, like, we couldn't do it. We just couldn't do on the Oddcast what we could do on True Weird Stuff, because it's just a different beast, right? A different everything. So yeah, if you want, I can do a much more spooky, creepy, in depth on the Soviet secret cities. And you know what? The Russians, y'all, are not the only ones to have secret cities. If you listen to last week's episode, Human Product 12, Oak Ridge, Tennessee was a secret city for a very long time. You don't think about that now. I mean, I think I went to like a Panera or something in Oak Ridge on a road trip once. And I was all tripped out because I'm in Oak Ridge, Tennessee, site of the Manhattan Project, former top secret city. And there's like books a million or whatever. Like, it was really trippy to me. But yeah, we've had our own secret cities too, haven't we, Max?
Yeah, we have. And I think that was one of the fascinating things about that episode. I learned a whole bunch of stuff. Pat Hart Stevenson said that she worked in nuclear medicine. I'm guessing it's a she. Yes. Worked in nuclear medicine for 35 years and learned a lot from that episode as well. So
I'm really grateful to for the sacrifices that were made that moved nuclear medicine forward. But we did some terrible things. We did some
terrible things. I mean, there was some terrible things done to unsuspecting people, and you want to think that was only done in Nazi Germany or something like that. But there were some. I don't think they did it on a larger scope. So I will say that. But there were some things that were done here that you really go, really? That happened here in this country, and not that long ago, really.
Our hands are not clean. They're not clean. And to the question about missing time, so there's a True Weird Stuff episode called Bright Lights, Big Sleepy, about my whole family losing. I think we lost maybe 16 hours, which is a lot. And we were all deathly sick. I mean, it's a crazy story. I have 2 missing time episodes. The other one I did tell on the Oddcast. That was the one that happened in Wilmington, North Carolina. And after we released that Oddcast episode, I heard from people that had similar experiences in that exact same area. So there's in Wilmington, if we have any Wilmington people with us tonight, there's like a lake and like kind of a big trail around it and apartments and stuff and Spanish moss dripping from the trees. It's like so picturesque. And there's a high school. And anyway, turns out I wasn't the only person that had some trippy things happen in that part of Wilmington.
I finish work. I go to the store. I come home from the store. I work some more. I go to bed. I get up. I work. I wish I had something trippy happen. I said, Sheri, I've got an episode we'll do on this. No, I wish I had one of those. I don't, but it's certainly.
Max, to be fair, you have had missing time since March 13th, 2020.
No question about that. Since the pandemic, yeah, it seems like, yeah.
Some days we'll be talking and working on something, and I'll be like, all right, so this one's going to be for blah 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 date, maybe like, okay, like July 17th, 2024, and Max will be like, wait, it's 2024.
I know I can't be the only one that does that. Where every once in a while you go, is it really? Oh wow, it was just. Well, weren't we worried about Y2K not that long ago?
You know what really gets me is, okay, so last weekend I helped Karamia move out of the dorms, right? It was the end of the semester. And we had moved everything. We went out and got some dinner, and I stayed overnight. We stayed overnight at the Comfort Inn because we were all so tired. So it was me and Karamia and 2 roommates. And we're talking about something. And I said to one of the girls, oh, let me show you a picture of this cool thing that I found at Target. Look at this. It's so cute. And the child said to me with a straight face, she goes, oh my God, that's like so vintage, like last century, 1990s.
Oh no.
Yeah. But that is, back to True Weird Stuff. One of the things that trips us out over and over again is the story starts a long time ago, but it doesn't end until now.
Yeah.
Like you saw that with the 3 teenage Nazi hunters.
Right. I mean, they did not get the recognition from the government until, 2014 was it, you said? 2012?
Yeah, 2014. The episode that's going to drop on Friday about the Georgia Guidestones. It started out 44 years ago, but it ended 2 years ago. And I don't even like to say it ended because, and I'm looking at you, Georgia Bureau of Investigations. What the hell? Like,
yeah, kind of tore it down. Yeah, well, we're working on this investigation. All right.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something weird about that. There really is.
Crystal said, like so many others, I'm certain the 80s were 20 years ago. It feels like it. I mean, I get it. It does feel that way. This is a conversation we have with Bob all the time. He'll be like, well, that song's not that old. And we're like, it's 57 years old.
Okay, Sheri, I got to tell you that to go back to the episode, I listen to so many murdery podcasts. There are so many unsolved murders and cold cases from Georgia. I don't know why Georgia seems to be a hotbed for that stuff, but they do. There seems to be. I'm listening to one right now about 2 guys who spent 25 years in prison when they were teenagers. It was a supposed murder, and they've been exonerated since.
I mean, if you're a podcast listener and a true crime fan, you understand what I mean when I say, what the what, GBI? Like, have you ever met a case you could solve without some shady, corrupt ass weirdness? Like, please come forward and school me on all of the ways the GBI is not shady. Like what we're talking about here, and you'll hear this in the Georgia Guidestones episode on Friday, July 6, 2022, boom, a crime. A monument is bombed. July 7th, 2022, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation bulldozes it, shuts it down. It's an active crime scene. What? Like, what in the dateline, what are we doing here? And I know, here come all the mealy-mouthed excuses. Well, it was for public safety. Okay, you know what else is for public safety? Figuring out who's bombing shit and bringing them to justice so they don't bomb shit anymore.
They might bomb some other shit.
There we go. There's a wacky little thought that I had. So yeah, I'm looking at you, GBI, and I have some questions. And no, there are no answers.
So you were looking to the Corpse Wooden Manor. It took place in Somerville, Georgia. I'm not familiar with that story.
Wait, Corpse Wooden Manor? Avery Rains, please do tell. Are the corpses made of wood? Was the manor built of corpses? Hang on, I'm gonna write that down because that has me all over.
We did a couple corpse episodes. One was about people that were. There was a period of time where people were going in and they were getting pieces of some of these Egyptian mummies, and they were eating it because the idea that it was for health. And then the other one about what happened with some of the embalming stuff and what happened to poor Abe Lincoln after he died. Oh my God, that was a horrifying story that. I had no idea that had happened.
Oh, and the mother-daughter body snatchers. I mean,
oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that one too. Yeah.
Let me be honest. Like, I do love a gruesome. Avery, if we end up doing the Corpse Wooden Manor, we're gonna shout you out in the credits. And if it's a building made of corpses, I need to know about it. Suzanne Banks, if there's no evidence it didn't happen. Girl, are you a member of the Peachtree State? Because that's motto over the door. Let's see. Oh, Cheryl needs some nice murdery podcasts to listen to. Feel free to recommend some. Max can recommend the John Wayne Gacy one that you can barely endure. It's so good.
Defense Diaries, it's called. and it's about John Wayne Gacy. And the guy who is emceeing it, his father was one of the defense attorneys for John Wayne Gacy. And I have to tell you, there were points along the line, and I consume probably far more of this than I should, but there were points along the line, and it was heading into Christmas, and I just was like, I think this Christmas season we're taking a break from John Wayne Gacy because I can't deal with it. Oh my God, monster's not even a big enough word to describe what was happening with him.
You know how like movies have ratings like G, PG, NC-17 or whatever. Podcasts should have ratings, and one should be MC for Max can't. Because if Max can't, you can't. If Max can't handle what's coming out of John Wayne Gacy's basement, no one can handle it.
Defense Diaries, and then the Sean Kipe ones are good.
In the Red Clay.
Oh
my God, what a podcast. What a podcast.
What's the other one? I want to say it's Chasing Wolves. It's not it. It's about the girl, the high school girl that was murdered. Shoot. Anyhow.
Oh, and her parents. Oh my God.
No, that's still that still hasn't been solved. And that's another one where they feel that the Georgia Bureau of Investigation has some evidence on it, and
GBI.
that the GBI is involved with pretty heavily. So
I feel like the rest of the GBI's name should be GBI don't wanna because the GBI doesn't wanna.
Another one that I'm listening to is called Proof, which is they have a couple seasons of it. The season I'm going through is probably an older season, but it's about the two guys who were convicted of this murder when they were teenagers, who turned out that it was all the conviction was falsified. And if these people had not done the podcast, this probably they'd die in prison.
Yeah. Max and I were joking the other day, like, wouldn't it be amazing? We're not like citizen investigators. Max hasn't left the closet that he works out of since March 13th, 2020. Like, we can't go out and solve crimes. We have to earn a living while we're doing this. But there have been some really powerful things that have happened because podcasters come in and they flip the lights on. And once the lights are on and people are asking questions, old cases and cold cases can suddenly get some attention. And speaking of questions, Erica asked me if I moved my setup. Heather brought me over some new equipment because we've been having just like the devil in the machine. And yes, this is my husband's pool table. And those white things you see are proximity alarms in case Charles jumps up on it and tries to pee on it again. Because I'm trying to keep this husband alive a little bit longer. And if the cat pees on his pool table, that's it. We're done.
Fox Hunter is the name of that podcast.
Fox Hunter. Thank you.
That's that one.
Thank you. Look, Max, Kimberly's cousin Wayne, Kimberly Fluke, her cousin Wayne lives in Georgia, and he searches out abandoned buildings for paranormal activity. Oh, he is my people.
I love it. It's funny. Sheri and I have the weirdest taste, and I love abandoned buildings. And I used to go and search it out on the internet. Now there's TV shows about the abandoned buildings. And then there's somebody in this state who I follow on Facebook, and she goes to abandoned buildings and stuff. What is it that I'm so fascinated with such things? I would visit my parents when they lived out in Nevada. I would go, is there any ghost towns around? Let's go to a ghost town. And so they took me to this one little ghost town that was a mining. They were doing mining in the town, and then young men were in the mines. It was during the Depression. Then World War II hit, and they all left because they joined the Army or the Navy or whatever, and so they just sort of left the mines there. And so there is one that's there. It's near Boulder City, Nevada.
Well, Heather lives down the road from an abandoned reform school. And so I'm fascinated with this place, right? I go to it. Anytime I'm out that way, I'm like, I'm going to go walk around the Stonewall Jackson School. So last spring, I was coming home from visiting my daughter, Olivia, Heather lives right in the middle between me and Olivia, right? So I'm coming home from visiting Olivia, and it's a gray overcast day, and I'm going to drive right by the Stonewall School. And Karen, me and her girlfriend Elizabeth were with me, and I was like, let's go check it out. And I went, there's a building called Daughter's Cottage. And I went in, and you guys, I saw a ghost. It was so amazing. I was so excited. Like, I walked in, first of all, like, it's trespassing, okay? But excuse me for living. I went through a hole in the fence and went up the stairs and went in. And you stand in the vestibule, and to your right is a staircase. And to your left is like a big room that leads to other rooms. And first I looked at the staircase, and there's a lot of natural light in the staircase, graffiti and beer cans and old textbooks. It's a really haunted freaking place. So after I finished checking out the stairway, I turned and I walked into the big room on the left, which is very shadowed, less natural light. And as I walked in, I'm looking around and my eyes adjusted, and an enormous black shape, like a figure, detached itself from the shadows and came right to me and then went that way. And I was like, oh, thank you. This is the best day ever. I saw a ghost. I told Heather, I saw a ghost at the Daughter Cottage. I saw a ghost at the Daughter Cottage. I'm going to do an episode about the Stonewall School, but we were already working on the prison reform school in Florida, and I didn't want to put them too close together. Heather, it was so epic.
Awesome. It's an awesome thing.
Cheryl is asking if it was Skylar Neese, the murder you're referring to. No.
No.
There was, not far from here, they had a minimum security prison, and the state was consolidating their prisons, and so it was left. And so I went by there one day, and it was abandoned, and I went through the gate, and I went in and walked around inside, and there was still a lot of stuff that was left inside there, and it was spooky AF.
Well, when we get around to our Stonewall School episode, we went in I will break into a building and go to town. Like, I have zero. My daddy was a meth cook. Like, the coppers, you don't scare me none. So one of the buildings that we went into had two things in it, right out of a freaking episode of American Horror Story. An old hospital bed, metal, springs, rusting, and an old piano. And Elizabeth said, do you want me to play something? And she goes over to this haunted ghost piano and starts to play. And I recorded it. And the hair goes up on the back of your neck. We're going to put that in the episode too. Sherry wants to know Wallace wants to know if I startled the Black Shadow.
Maybe.
I felt like it wanted me to see it. I felt like it wanted to be seen. And maybe it was disappointed that it didn't scare me. But it didn't. It didn't feel evil. It was so tangibly present, right? I mean, have you never seen anything like that?
Oh, I have.
I know you have, Max.
No. I would love to. I invite it, but I haven't seen anything like that. No.
We do need to get you out of the house a little bit more. Y'all have no idea how many hours Max works. You have no idea how many hours this man sits in this windowless, and it's a small space and it's windowless, and the equipment puts off a lot of heat.
It does.
So you're just like in an air fryer. Like, you're just.
He's in an air fryer.
Up, Forrest.
Yeah.
But I really love the process when we put an episode of this together, just because Sheri, she will write it, she will research it, then she will write it, and then we will record it. And as we're recording it, I make notes about different things. I hear, I'd like to do this. I want to do this musical change. I want to do this and that while we're doing it. And then the day that I actually sit down and I put all the pieces together, I sort of have an idea of what it is that I want to do. And I love that. And, I'll get to the end, like the last episode where, it is the one of the Dutch girls. It's a Nazi hunter who gets to the very end, who's talking about the fact that some of these people that invaded them and the way they treated them were sociopaths, but she never lost her humanity in that. She would kill somebody, but her first her first impulse was to help them get up. And I remember the first time I heard it with the music, because I tried to get the words to go with the music exactly, and I thought, if this comes out right, and it came out great. I was really happy with that.
Max, I tell Max I get like a little shivery feeling when he nails one of those things. It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
How about this? Just happened a few weeks ago. Which episode was it? You were almost finished and you lost. You had a technical
God, I can't remember which one, but yeah, I had I said to Sheri, I said, I'm maybe a little late with this one. I got in the middle, I'd edited, I put music and everything else, and all of a sudden the thing froze, it broke down. And I was like, oh hell.
He had to start from scratch. He had to do.
But at least I knew. I mean, I had about 20% that I still could work with. I had about 20% that was done, and I had to go back. But at least I knew what I had done, and so it wasn't too bad. But oh man, I tried everything I could to try to fix it, to try to help it, to try to save it, and I looked at YouTube videos. I mean, I was doing everything I could, but oh well.
Max is too modest to tell you how much like math is involved, because if you listen to what he's doing, there are times where the music is timed to hit in a specific way on a specific word or syllable, and he has to back time all of that to get it done while layering in dialogue and all of these other things. And sometimes it's so complicated that it makes your head hurt to imagine what it is he's trying to kind of weave together. And when you listen to it, it washes over you, and you don't necessarily realize you're not just hearing like me telling the story and some music behind me. He's woven multiple strands of sound to create that atmosphere. It's really complex. And I think that geeky production people hear it, and they'll reach out to Max.
I do. I hear from geeky production people, and they will get in touch with me and go, I heard what you did with that because of that, because it doesn't matter. I mean, just as long as you get, if we're able to convey what we're trying to convey by telling the story, if we're able to tell the story as well as we can, it doesn't matter where somebody understands that, as long as they understand that. But when I hear from production people who are geeky, that really is cool. I really like that.
Because that's so one of the things that is so fun for the two of us with this podcast is I'm geeked out on like the research and the hunting down of the most obscure little piece of it, because you just can't look at the internet. You can't just look at Wikipedia. A lot of times, I've said this before, you'd be shocked at how wrong some of the important details in a Wikipedia entry are. Their dates are wrong, names are wrong, all kinds of stuff's wrong. So, you got to dig down primary sources, military records, arrest records, birth certificates. You got to go dig. That is like, man, that's my thing. And for Max, it's all that sound layering and all that atmospheric. That's his thing. And that's what's made this a really fun project to do.
Yeah. Because I'll go through and when we finish with the episode, then I will go into a music library and I'll start putting in keywords to try to find something that fits the right music. Then in the episode that we just did, a lot of that is Jewish flavored type music. It's not
Haba Nagila.
Yeah, it's not Haba Nagila, but it is. If you listen closely to it. It is, and that's one of the things that I really love, that it really sets it really well with the story that you're telling.
And I have more time to work on an episode. Max, sometimes we're a month ahead, sometimes we're chasing just the next week, but I've spent a year coming back in and out of the Mountain Meadow Massacre story. But when Max gets the episode, he's on a deadline.
And so I have to be, and I can't. So Sheri does. I mean, Sheri does the bulk of the work on it. I just say, but you can write something. You can be, I don't know, if you're on a trip, you're on. I
can be anywhere.
You can write it. I have to be right here. I can't do it anywhere else.
Yeah. I mean, I recognize that. I can, and I do write it anywhere. I always have my laptop with me. I'm always thinking and looking for like, ooh, you can just feel it. You can just feel the story tells you how it wants to be told. And I like to jump around in time a little bit. I don't like to necessarily tell you he was born and then blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
and he died. Like I like to jump around in time and have cliffhangers and little teases and stuff. The episode that will be coming out in a couple weeks that includes the founder of Scientology is so batshit wild insane that when you hear it, you'll be like, there is absolutely no way. There is no way that this is a true thing. Completely true, right? Completely true. They don't teach in school our real history. They teach our mythology, right?
Mhm.
They teach our PR, but they don't teach our real history. So back to what Max does. He gets the story, but then it's on him to figure out, all right, well, what is the mood? How are we gonna add ambience to this? What is the mood we're trying to create? And sometimes it's like gruesome fun, like in the Bloody Benders episode, where we flipped the narrative to first person and murdered the listener in the
Yeah.
Benders cabin. Max was like, wait till you hear the head being crushed. You're gonna love it.
That was rough.
The first time when I got the right sound effect for it, I was like, ooh, turned my stomach.
He told me, he's like, it's wet and juicy.
Yeah. But listen, we really appreciate you listening to it. When we started this, we kind of didn't know whether anybody would care about it or whether they'd be interested in it. And we're just impressed that you're listening to it. And we're just very happy that you do. And we're very appreciative.
We're very grateful. Can I tell you, we say this all the time, but you need to understand, this is such a complete labor of love. Like we do this in the time that we're not doing our jobs that we get paid for. And this is costing money. This is not making money. The cost of, like you can't just go, I think I'll have a podcast and throw it out on the internet. You have paid for hosting and all sorts of
the music library to use the music costs. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another expense on it as well.
Yeah. So, and every week I'm like, Max, I don't know how much longer we can hang on, buddy. I know you're tired. He's like, oh, I know you're tired. All right, but I got one coming up about you're not going to believe the one we have coming up. So we're not even joking when we say, well, we're glad you like it. We're making it for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and we appreciate it if you do reviews and that sort of stuff, depending on where you listen to it, because I know that you can't in some ways if you listen to it, but if you're like on Apple Podcasts, if you leave a review or rate it, God, that really helps us. It really does.
We have dark days. I'm just going to be real. We have dark days where we're so beaten down and so tired, not by True Weird Stuff, but just by life and our day job and everything. And Max will go, I was going to put my head in the oven, but listen to what somebody said about the episode. And you would not believe it. It is like, we're going to keep going another week. It's so crazy. So I want to say one more thing, periodically when we're on Happy Hour, we say, hey, if you want to be a voice actor on True Weird Stuff, we would love to have you. And Ashley Palmer Fisher, who has done a couple of episodes with us now, a handful, reached out and said, I would like to be a voice actor on True Weird Stuff. So there are only 2 things that you need to do in order to do that. We need you to have a microphone. Okay.
Yeah.
Like this microphone is a USB mic that I bought from Amazon.com for $19.99. Most people I find now have audio setups because if you've been working remotely, chances are you have headphones and a microphone.
Mm-hmm.
So we need you to have headphones and a microphone. And then we need you to email us at hello@bobandsheri.com, or you can DM either one of us or Heather on Facebook. And you need to tell us a little bit about yourself. You need to say, hey, I'm Regina and I have a slight Southern accent and I've done some community theater, and I think I'd be really good at blah, blah, blah. One of the things, like when we did the Black Eyed Kids episode, we could not lay hands on small children. And it is harder than you think for Max to go up to people at the playground and go, "Is that your 10-year-old girl? I'd like to work with her." I mean, I just can't do it. And we're in a weird spot because I have toddlers in my family and teenagers and college students. And Max can't be approaching random people with their children. So we had a really hard time casting the children for that episode. So Ashley Palmer Fisher again has a 10-year-old daughter who really wants to take a swing at voice acting. We need males, females, we need kids, we need teenagers. And the thing is, if I know you're out there, I'll write for you. A lot of times we have to write around those parts because Max doesn't want to get arrested at the playground for recruiting voice talent. So if we know that you're there, like, because we have a little stable now that we're growing of people that want to do this and think it's fun and a hoot, we write for those people. And we would love to include you in it too. Look at Erica, a 10-year-old boy that wants to do it. So yeah, come on, bring it. And we'll find a part for you as long as you have the willingness, the microphone and the headphones, and an understanding that here in the land ruled by Tony Garcia, your paycheck is going to be made of love, not of money.
You will get the warm glow of accomplishment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes Max and I will say stuff like, "Hey, what do you think we can do with, maybe Tony will pay us," and then we laugh till our sides hurt and we accept the warm glow of accomplishment. Look, Heather can't even keep a straight face. Also, and I want to thank Avery Rains for the Corpsewood Manor. If you have, if there's something in your world, your neck of the woods, something that you've always been curious about, that you'd like us to do a deep dive on and do an episode on, share that too, because it's why I was on an airplane. This was about 6 or 7 months ago. And I was on an airplane, and the usual, like, "Well, what do you do?" "Well, I do the Bob and Sheri show, and I have this podcast called True Weird Stuff." And I got to chatting with this complete stranger, and I ended up with a half a dozen things to check out for potential episodes, including The Ghost of Ed Neal, which became an episode not too long ago. So, yeah.
Or you can be like me, who met famous Hollywood actress Chrissy Metz, who said she was an actress, and I said, "I'm an actor." And I didn't know who she was. And then later found out she was a big freaking deal.
Max, I opened the latest People magazine, and there's a big picture of Chrissy Metz.
She is everywhere.
I
She
couldn't
was just on The Masked Singer.
I couldn't make eye contact with her photo because I'm traumatized because of you. I'm like, I can't even look at this picture of Chrissy Metz. I can't do it.
She was one of those people that radiated light. Do you know what I mean? You know, some of the people that just have it, and she was like that. And I didn't know who she was until I said, "Well, can I follow you on Instagram?" And she said, "Sure." And I looked, and she had 1.9 million followers.
And Max is like, "I'm Max on the Bob and Sheri show," and Chrissy's like, "That's good for you."
I mentioned the True Weird Stuff podcast, so there's that too.
Yeah, thank you for always doing the PR and marketing. Before we jump off, Heather, are we giving away prizes in the chat stream tonight?
I will send some messages. I am not certain. Tony's out of town right now.
Be on the lookout. You may get a message in your inbox. You may get a message in your inbox from Heather in your Facebook Messenger inbox. That's not spam. That's Heather genuinely trying to connect with you to send you a prize. Oh, Max, look what Mary Catherine Middleton said. She probably appreciated having a normal conversation.
Do you know what's funny about it? She initiated the conversation.
Yeah.
We were both sitting waiting for takeout food. So.
And Max, what I love about this, if you didn't hear this story, she asked you what you you guys talked about what you each ordered, and you made some recommendations, not knowing who you were talking to.
Well, she asked, she said, have you eaten here before? I said, yes. She said, what are you getting? And I told her, and I said, the sweet potato. And she said, I don't like sweet potato. And I said, well, I've kind of learned to like it because I'm trying to eat healthier, you know. And so we talked about that. Oh my God. Chrissy Metz. Who knew? I didn't watch This Is Us. I didn't know I was with an Emmy nominated actress. I didn't know.
Here's the best part. This Is Us was one of the biggest network television shows of this century.
And she was nominated. She wasn't nominated just once. She was nominated for all kinds of things. And she won stuff too. You know.
I mean, it's one thing if you haven't seen an obscure Hulu comedy. It's another thing. This is truly one of the most celebrated mainstream network television shows of this century. When Max told me about this Chrissy Metz thing, I could not breathe. I was on the floor.
When I told her, I said, do you know who Chrissy Metz is? She goes, yeah, I know who she is. And I went, well, I met her. And I was very awkward.
But you know what that says about you? It shows just you are a real, sincere, authentic person. You're not some bullshit, fake, phony guy that's like, oh, well, Chrissy Metz. You were like, I've learned to like sweet potatoes, Chrissy Metz.
You know who she was at that point.
Oh my gosh. All right, we are so stealing Crystal Bianco's suggestion. Thank you, Tweirdos, for being with us tonight.
Mojo says bye. Hi, everybody. He was trying to get in here.
Sweet boy.
Our next happy hour will be on its usual night, Thursday, and it'll be the usual happy hour. We do True Weird Wednesdays, I think, once a month or so is what the plan is right now.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight and for listening to our weird, goofy little podcast. Yeah. I hope you all like the Georgia Guidestones episode that is coming out tomorrow, and I think your mind is going to be blown by The Mad Scientist, which is next Friday. Have an awesome night. Stay weird, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Okay, we're clear.